So in the first video, we looked at how to create the pseudocode or the exam reference language for OCR on how to create a random hex color string. And in that process, we looked at a number of different ways we could get a random hex digits. In the second video, we converted that to Python and looked at a third way how we could get a random hex digits. In this video, we're simply going to do the conversion from pseudocode or exam reference language to Visual Basic. So what I've done again is I've simply copied and pasted the exam reference language into Visual Studio, and let's see where we can go. So first thing we need to remember is that a comment in Visual Basic is a apostrophe, and we do have a function, and it is end function, and I'll just fix both of those. Don't forget our capitalization. And just before we start, this is going to go into the main function, and now we're going to start by looking at this code. So in Visual Basic, it's a typed language, so we want to dim lookup, and we'll just make that a lowercase as it was before, and that's as a string, and the rest of this code is the same. I'm going to just make a slight change to this. Again, hex digits, we need to declare that, so it's a hex digit again as a string. And in Visual Basic, instead of square brackets, it is round brackets for indices, and this is a lowercase return. So how do we get a random number in Visual Basic? Well, the first thing we want to do is initialize a random or an object of the random class. So we can say that rand obj is equal to new random, and that doesn't take well, it can take a seed. A seed effectively determines the pseudo-random nature, but for this case we'll leave that as empty, and then we want to declare random. This time that's going to be an integer, and it is going to be, we're going to take the instance of random, and we're going to use the next object, and we need to do dim, and that will work. So we've now declared a random object, and if you think about Python, we import random, and then we do random.randint. This is just simply getting the next integer value in the pseudo sequence. So that should work. Let's have a look. So now we want to come down here, and we want to make sure that we declare our color string as a string. In this particular case, this code is identical, except we're using capital F and capital T. Of course, digits, we need to declare that, and the digit is a string. Now, current modern Visual Basic uses type inference, so it will allow you not to have to declare the as, but it's at GCSE we ought to be showing that we understand about data types. And color string, well, we've already referred to that up here, and this code works exactly as it should do. So again, down here we need to random color is a string, and that will not change. And then in Visual Basic it is console dot write, and you can see our IntelliSense here. Write means that it will write the line and then stay on that line. Write line will then write it and then move to the next line down. and that should be enough to convert that from pseudocode to Visual Basic. Let's run this code now. And you can see here that we have a hex digit A08471. Let's try running that again to make sure that it is random. And you can see that we have a different random value. Let's just do it one more time. And we can see that we have another random value. So here we have seen how simple it is to convert from pseudocode or exam reference language into Visual Basic. Now, if we look closely at this code, we'll see that I made an error. However, in Visual Basic, that error will not be manifested. You'll notice that I changed R and D to be lowercase r. However, I made the error of remaining this as capital R and D, and yet when we ran the code it worked. And that's because in Visual Basic all variables are case insensitive, so R and D would be the same as R and D or R and D. So that's why it will work in Visual Basic. It's not good practice to do that. If we're doing that in another language, it would pick that up. But I wanted to point that out for those of you that were screaming at the screen saying that I have a typo in my variable name. Hopefully that assists, and I look forward to seeing you in the next video.